acrobatics.
Oh, and here we go. Make some noise, everybody. We have got Juan's lead being the Incineroar Golden Go versus Theotime's Incineroar and the Volcarona. This is such an evolution of the meta development to witness in front of our eyes. Volcarona usually comes in for that slot of the Golden Go, and Juan still rocking true with that Pokemon this time round.
Fake out coming out from Juan's, well, Incineroar. Of course it is an Incineroar all the time, and followed up by a Shadow Ball with a special defense drop. That's going to be big.
Yeah, that truly will be. It guarantees a KO in the subsequent turn if there is no sort of defensive play from Theotime's Volcarona coming into effect as the knockoff. Not quite enough to pick up the KO due to that Intimidate drop of the attack from Incineroar's side.
Okay, so yeah, we've got a little bit of a throwaway of big attacks there without necessarily any sort of setup that both of these trainers do have access to as well. And yeah, that special defense drop is going to be big on that Volcarona, because without that, you could have maybe gone for Equivalence and guarantee you then take another Shadow Ball from that point, but that's no longer the case now. So Theotime has to really go on the defensive here with that Volcarona if he wants to save it.
Yeah, and both of our trainers rapidly inputting their actions, given the sort of prowess that they've got in terms of the flow charts when it comes to this matchup. They're so keen and tuned in to what it needs to be done. Shadow Ball targeting what was that Volcarona slot. Sure, not dealing anywhere close to good amount of damage due to that Assault Vest. Able to sponge up all of that damage, even if it is, of course, going to be from that Life Orb Golden Go. And Juan's Incineroar moving first. Getting that pivot action going with the parting shot allows that potential Sneasler to come in and maybe even start trying to set up, or at least even if not, you can directly threaten that Rillaboom.
Yeah, you really can. It's a very strong Pokemon. Obviously, not having that Dire Claw access here, but the acrobatics itself, especially when combined with that Terra Flying, that Juan's maybe been saving for it, could be really strong. But first, another parting shot from Theotime here, yelling insults at each other.
Yeah, truly. And at this point, actually, Theotime's slower Incineroar really getting the fruits of that speed interaction advantage, because you can at least ensure the Sneasler is now at -1. So already feeling like it's having to work back a bit more and maybe even force Juan to consider a Swords Dance setup from the get-go.
Yeah, exactly. You need to kind of get some sort of boost if you want to muscle through a Rillaboom specifically, I think. Or you're going to go for that Terra, and that might also be enough that once you kind of commit that. And that's the same for the Volcarona here. Like, again, acrobatics is looking really strong. But of course, this Sneasler is at -1 attack from that parting shot. And there's an Incineroar in the back, which is the strongest type of Incineroar, because as soon as it comes in, it drops another attack drop on you and has Fake Out for the following turn. So I wouldn't be surprised to see an Incineroar switch, but we don't even.
Ooh, okay. Just to protect from the Sneasler, wanting to maybe allow the Golden Go to go down, bring in that free switch in from behind if there is a focus of the Volcarona into that slot. Fake Out obviously trying to target down the Sneasler, the Shadow Ball, not enough, and it seems like the double up was intended for the Sneasler. So really Juan being able to still benefit off of having that Sneasler retained on the field, and sort of what we were talking about, the free switching capability, and the fact that the Golden Go obviously hasn't committed to a Terra option means that Juan's probably considering and valuing that Sneasler's Terra Flying more, and just wanting to allow Golden Go to just start chipping away the health of Theotime's Pokemon.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Costa. I think getting those Pokemon really low suddenly puts you in range of so many other Pokemon. In a way, you don't need to rely on what you had before. Like, you don't have to just kind of completely set up and then lose that Pokemon suddenly. So I really like this. Juan is definitely going to be playing around the Sneasler now, as we know he's got Rillaboom in the back too, to provide another yet Fake Out option. But if he's going to make the most of Sneasler, he probably doesn't want to switch it out either. Losing your defense boost, losing the Unburden boost too. You want to find a way to try and get those Swords Dance boosts up, especially when you are one Pokemon down, which is really dangerous. But at least you do have a Sneasler that's going to be very fast, most likely outspeed everything that Theotime has. Theotime just has to find a way to deal back to that Sneasler, maybe with some special attacking damage to get around that Grassy Seed boost.
Yeah, and something to call out as well, we hadn't seen the fourth Pokemon revealed yet from Theotime's side, but it is going to be confirmed to be the Ninetales Alola, which we know has a Focus Sash. It will start being able to actually incentivize Juan to really consider when to Terrasilize into the Flying type, as of course it will become susceptible to super effective Blizzards if allowed to do so. And the fake out into that slot means we have the focus sash now temporarily broken unless we see the grassy terrain recovery bring itself back. Not just yet. Seems like it may have to be the subsequent turn, but a Swords Dance has been set up now.
It certainly has, yeah. That's exactly what Juan needs. So back up to neutral now, though. So yeah, still not the ultimate powerhouse of offensive threat. Incineroar can probably still survive a close combat depending on its training, although we know Theotime's Incineroar is pretty fast given its outspeed. It's sped a lot of other Rillabooms from previous sets.
Yep.
But first of all, it's not going to do anything this turn thanks to that fake out.
Ooh, but this opens up a play for the Ninetales to try to go for the encore. Here we go. What a lovely little lock in this scenario. Juan not opting to go for the safe play of just the protect, wanting to capitalize off the momentum, anticipating maybe Theotime reacting to that play. Flare Blitz into the Ninetales will bring it just beneath half of its HP, but in this scenario, Sneasler's in such an awkward spot.
It is now, yeah. It's going to have to Swords Dance constantly for the next few turns or so, and that is going to free up so much room for Theotime to kind of deal with the other Pokemon here. And Juan's price is going to have to be to switch out that Sneasler if he wants to get rid of that Encore, but of course you give up so much time to kind of set it up in that first place. But it looks like Juan is happy to keep that Swords Dance going as long as he can kind of support it a little bit more with the offensive threats that he's still got besides that, being that Incineroar, being that Rillaboom, because looking at that team that Theotime's got, it really doesn't like those fire moves, which Incineroar definitely has access to.
No, it doesn't, so we're going to have to make sure we keep count of how many attack boosts this Sneasler's got so far, +2. Given the Encored Swords Dance. Blizzard not picking up any sort of freezes. Parting Shot going into the Ninetales slot allows Juan to have the Rillaboom available for the subsequent turns fake out, and that gives a bit more breathing room when it comes to the Sneasler to be able to have a bit more of staying power and not just susceptible to any sort of KOs from the Incineroar. What a smart play from Theotime. This is sort of an equivalent to an Encore Disable interaction due to the Encore effect of the Swords Dance being in play, now taunted.
Yeah, that's a really cool effect there. So as soon as this Sneasler tries to attack, it will struggle here. And so luckily it's not in the second slot, otherwise you can kind of accidentally lock yourself into it because it will be a random target and it's going to then take 25% recoil as well. But does Juan want to stay in? It looks like he's maybe considering it, but at this point, if you want to use anything about that Sneasler and not get it to KO itself, you do really need to switch this out to have a chance. But Theotime, very strong position right now. Ninetales in a great position to deal some damage too. Yeah,
and it's a great pin that Theotime has been able to force onto Juan to make sure that they could forego the initial, not only attack boost, but the unburden as well, which is so crucial when it comes to the end game for Theotime's side, having that Volcarona setup going.
And so there is the Sneasler switching out as what makes sense. Ninetales switching out too, maybe wanting to set up that snow for a little bit later on. And it's good old Pyrax, the Volcarona coming in.
Yeah, and this is sort of the positioning that Theotime definitely wants to be able to capitalize off of. But at the same time, Juan does still have the Incineroar on the field, whilst Theotime is going to be burning their Terra option onto the Rillaboom. No pun intended, it is Fire Terra, of course.
Nice.
Apologies, that is from Juan's side. Going for the Wood Hammer means that not only do you guarantee a KO onto that slot, if it's a Volcarona switch in, you're not going to fall susceptible to a burn due to the flame body interaction of the ability knockoff. Going into the Rillaboom will finally actually be able to get rid of the Assault Vest, but at this point, Volcarona's gone. The only thing that could benefit off of the Assault Vest being knocked off is going to be the Alolan Ninetales, which we know its only offensive move is going to be the Blizzard, which naturally will be hitting a resist into that fire typing.
Yeah, it is. So a really good Terra there for Juan. Now, you're going into the rest of this game kind of thinking, right, what are my offensive pieces? How do I just dish the damage I need to do to all of those Pokemon that we've still got here? And for Juan, the Incineroar is obviously very important here. You deal so much damage into both the Rillaboom and that Ninetales. Now, Sneasler, given though it's lost its ability to have that Unburden boost and the defense boost, it still does have a really nice speed tier into Theotime's team. Yeah. Now, it also naturally outspeed Ninetales, but we don't know whether it's trained to outspeed Ninetales either, because we've only seen it with the Unburden boost activated as well. So it could be that this Sneasler is still faster than a max speed Ninetales, and if so, it's looking really strong.
Yeah, it's going to have to come down to the nature perhaps, because the Ninetales do tend to have max speed when it comes to the focus sash sets, but we're going to have to find out as the high horsepower, apologies, will go into that Rillaboom slot, perhaps wanting to make sure that there's any sort of coverage in terms of a reposition from Theotime's side. And looking at the recovery interactions, we saw the Incineroar is faster than Juan's Rillaboom, followed then by the Rillaboom over on Theotime's side.
Yeah, exactly. So really critical information to kind of go with for throughout the set here as well, because that's going to determine who has the luxury of faking out whoever they want, basically, rather than being faked out in turn by the opposing fake out Pokemon.
Right.
Right.
We got there. We got there, David.
Right. So yeah, obviously now we're in a position where the Ninetales is threatening like Encores and Disables as well, but a Raw Blizzard could obviously deal with a few kind of put a few freezes around, but like otherwise it's not doing a whole lot of offensive presence, right? But still, that control of how it changes up move selection is really powerful. So it could be that Teams are looking for that bait there, just kind of target that slot as Incineroar comes in to maybe take grass or fire moves. Yeah,
and clearly not wanting to risk the blind blizzards and try to bring that snow back on in later on towards the end game, as we finally have the terrestrialization committed from Theotime's side. It's going to be, yes, you guessed it, the Rillaboom now over on their side of the field. Terra Fire will, of course, mean that there's going to be an interesting mind game on whether the high horsepower is predicted or not, but no, it's just going to be a smooth, grassy glide into what is essentially chip damage onto Theotime's Incineroar switching. Now, though, parting shot allows Juan an opportunity to finally bring in that Sneasler for the end game at such a crucial point in order to be able to perhaps capitalize, unless Theotime has read this, gone for the high horsepower focus in that slot, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Theotime, though, did go for the read with an un golpe critical for Juan's Rillaboom, which unfortunately means they're down to their final 2 Pokemon.
Yeah, that was definitely not KOing that critical hit there, given the parting shot that just happened in that same turn there. But when there's a Sneasler, there's a way, they say. And often that's because of Dire Claw. But also, it's got a really good offensive typing, and it's still got the close combat and the activated acrobatics, given that double power that it has, because Sneasler no longer has that item either. So we could see critical hits in return as well because of that. But Theotime, because he's got 3 Pokemon left still, does afford him the luxury of being able to still switch around.
Right.
And Incineroar is looking really strong here if you switch it out and give it back in again.
And there is a case that the Sneasler no longer has the Grassy Seed proc to give it +1 in its defense, right?
Yeah, exactly. So suddenly the physical attackers on that side are looking really strong still too. Ninetales also in the back can set up the snow, and we also could be that the Ninetales actually outspeeds the Sneasler too.
Oh, as we're going to see the Rillaboom switch itself out, Ninetales bringing the snow along its side, maybe just wanting to make sure that that slot, if it's going to have a focus down on, will preserve the Rillaboom for the following turn. You can see Theotime very happy with that interaction, because the Incineroar did not go for the following opposing Incineroar. It's going to be stopping the Sneasler completely in its tracks, whilst getting additional chip damage via another critical hit.
And we saw that from the grassy terrain confirmation that Theotime's Ninetales does indeed outspeed Juan's Sneasler here. So that means it's such a safe Blizzard here, assuming Sneasler doesn't try to protect in this scenario. So Juan is definitely needing to rely on this Incineroar now to do the rest of what it needs to do.
Oh, and there's the Encore to force the Incineroar into a locked state, and with no switches means it's most likely not going to be able to move for the remainder of, at least say the next couple of turns, if not the rest of the game. Close combat, enough to, of course, pick up the KO onto the Ninetales, but Sneasler now susceptible to, I would say, the Flare Blitz on Theotime's side. -1 of its defense is not quite nice, but there's no KO focus. Theotime preserving himself in terms of not wanting to play around with some awkward damage calcs, just in case there's a bit more investment when it comes to the physical defense of this Sneasler.
Yeah, and the Incineroar doesn't even have Flare Blitz either, so most likely not able to kind of get that KO on either side. So doing it what Incineroar does best, switching out so it can come back in, so it can fake out even further. So here, Theotime has a really nice safe play here. We know the Incineroar on Juan's side is locked in. to that fake out as well. So it means it's a really safe target for just a general attack at this point. So Incineroar can fake out Sneasler, and then you have the high horsepower from Gorhythmic to go into this Incineroar to deal a lot of damage.
Yeah, this does feel like a complete lockdown, even though the Sneasler opts to go for the Protect by a bit more time in terms of the remainder of the turns from Juan's Incineroar now locked in the spot. We see the fake out interactions. Juan's Incineroar going first, still unfortunately locked into the Encore. And now we've got the follow-up. The high horsepower connects, does not pick up a KO, does proc that Citrus Berry, but like we said, I think it's just a little too late in order to be able to bring this back, especially because of what we've seen, the speed interactions would be, although something to note, the Rillaboom is actually slower than the Incineroar on Juan's side.
Yeah, exactly. So we still can see a lot of damage come out from there. So maybe a double up from the Incineroar and the Sneasler, but I think we still got another fake out turn still to go on Incineroar here too. So it's still a sitting cat when it comes to just being dropped at the moment. So it could be that Theotime wants to commit, say, a Wood Hammer into that slot to make sure something hits.
Yeah, and the close combat is of... Oh! It's enough! Because of a critical hit! Does that mean the Sneasler has been able to bring Juan back into this game, which looked so dire for himself? And we're going to have to find out the interactions. We know for a fact the knockoff is not enough. Even -1 defense Sneasler holds on. What a turn of events, and what a way to bring yourself back into the game.
Yeah, absolutely huge. We saw Juan kind of hover over their own Sneasler, seeing how low all those stats were there. It was going to do pitiful damage, but yeah, critical hit, critically timed as well. Sneasler loves its trainer so much.
Oh, and the Flare Blitz just to make sure you get as much chip damage as you can in order to seal the deal with the close combat knockoff. Of course, not enough to be able to do any sort of respectable damage. Theotime anticipating the Protect, but I think it is definitely not enough. The Sneasler in a situation where you had to go for the critical hit. Juan was able to get it, and this is sort of the end of the process in terms of this game one. What a way to be able to get back in and force an advantage game against Theotime.
Yeah, so just putting that Incineroar in range, most likely of another Flare Blitz now.
Yep.
So Sneasler going down. We've seen that Juan's Incineroar has been faster than Theotime's Incineroar very consistently. Unless Juan's been winning speed ties this entire game, this is most likely a KO.
Yeah.
And yeah, Juan stealing up game one.
Wow, there we have it. Juan not giving up. There were 3 minutes remaining of that game one. Tantalizing back and forth between both of our trainers. And, you know, every little count of RNG matters so much when it comes to this sort of interaction and matchup, because it's just all down to the fine margins between both of these trainers. They played multiple times before in the past, and Juan clearly has a bone to pick with Theotime this time round.
And we saw how critical hits actually went both ways in that set, right?
It did.
We saw Theotime actually get the high horsepower crit on the Terrify Rillaboom as well, and then the fake out crit a little bit later to put Sneasler a little bit more in range of other attacks.
Yep.
So yeah, that's Juan kind of really biting back there, saying, right, I'm going to get you where it counts this time.
And yeah, was able to do it to such exceptional fashion. This is sort of what we were talking about a bit earlier, David. The Golden Go sort of there to be able to reduce as much of the HP from Theotime's side with no true intent of committing it as the main sweeper. But we've got to change up. This is game 2 of our first semifinals. Blood Moon Ursaluna now making its way through onto the field, accompanied by that Incineroar in the same lead over on Theotime's side.
Yeah, so no Golden Go this time for Juan. So bring the Volcarona instead, which is the Ursaluna instead, which is obviously much less threatened by the Volcarona on the other side here. And obviously, Juan did get a little bit lucky with the Shadow Ball to special defense drop a little bit last time, so maybe not wanting to rely on that again here. So this time, Ursaluna's most likely going to go on the offense, get some Blood Moon damage out there to do as much damage as possible to put things in range.
Yeah, Juan's Incineroar first to move and get the fake out going over on Theotime's side whilst the Quiver Dance has been set up, but this does mean the Blood Moon Ursaluna is open to go for the Yawn in order to trap in, or at least initiate a Yawn Vortex, and this sort of of already nullifies the Quiver Dance being set up, unless Theotime can find a way to navigate around this by going for another Quiver Dance commit and hoping that you're able to survive the next couple of turns and wake up.
Very interesting as well. Yeah, we've seen Theotime kind of just commit when this Volcarona has been locked in. So there's a knockoff that's going to get rid of that Grassy Seed, which has not actually been activated yet. So a really big play there from Juan. But the parting shot from the other side is going to bring in something else to support this Volcarona and help it buy more turns.
Yeah, and this is so crucial because it already skews off those damage calculations in order to be able to allow the Volcarona to survive those physical hits from Juan's end. And yeah, even though the fake out is now available on Rillaboom's side, you're going to be able to give yourself one more turn of rest, whilst the Blood Moon is showing that, you know, such a powerful move is not able to deal a very big dent in a +2 Quiver Dance Volcarona as we take that immediate sleep status condition now applied.
Yeah, that's a really big deal there, especially for that knockoff that Juan went for there. Absolutely huge, because suddenly the physical attackers that Juan had a lot of, right, in the last game, can suddenly hit this Volcarona for so much more damage. Theotime, we can obviously see, is trying to go, right, I'm going to accept the sleep, but I've got enough supportive pieces to try and stall out the sleep, wake up eventually, and with the bulk of the Quiver Dance, I should be able to survive. But that is not quite the case right now. Incineroar is in a very, very good position, assuming an attack can come off, but most likely getting faked out this turn.
Yeah, Blood Moon already doing what it needed to in that scenario, getting that Yawn initiated, allowing the Sneasler now to be brought in, +1 defense. It is unburdened. It will be able to outspeed a +2 Quiver Dance up Volcarona, whilst being able to capitalize off of what is one of the freest switch-in turns that I've seen throughout this tournament. Fake out into the Incineroar. Not going to be able to get any sort of motion going for Theotime.
Yeah, it's not. So yeah, this is looking really strong at the moment. Now, we have seen Volcarona Rocket's Flame Body multiple times across the last couple of days, so even if the Sneasler can get the KO on this Volcarona with an Acrobatics, it still is risking itself getting burnt here particularly, which could be really key to Theotime's plan, especially based on that parting shot that the Volcarona is kind of providing in that sense here too. We also haven't seen the interaction between the speed of Sneasler at +2 and the Volcarona at +2. So I'm assuming the Sneasler is going to outspeed, but we don't know for sure.
That is true. At the current moment, we do not, as Theotime feeling forced to try to get the pivot action going between the fake out siblings, let's say, in this scenario. Incineroar now making its way on the field whilst forcing the Sneasler down to -1 of its attack. Most likely going to be seeing a Swords Dance coming out, but the Volcarona going on the offensive, or at least the defensive, to make sure there's no acrobatic focus onto that slot. Not able, of course, to wake up. Mandatory turn off sleep. Acrobatics, not enough to pick up the KO, but that's sort of what we're talking about. How Theotime is forced to be able to already go for that terrestrialization button.
Yeah, so Theotime breathing maybe a moderate sigh of relief there that the attack can go into the Volcarona to KO it, obviously. But yeah, we saw there that there was still no wake up yet there, and the Sneasler still able to kind of push through and deal a lot of damage. Rillaboom coming in though, it could still provide that fake out, but yeah, this Volcarona, if it does manage to wake up, could be pretty scary here. And I believe we saw an attempt at a protect, actually, from the Volcarona, potentially, or it was still going on the attack. But it does depend, because you could say Terra Fairy in case you don't wake up, and Terra Fairy, and like if you the attack does kind of go through instead. So yeah, we still don't know if this Volcarona is going to outspeed the Sneasler.
Oh, let's see if we're going to find out. Theotime not trying to go, I'd say, a bit on the aggressive in order to have subsequent and continuous fake outs available. Immediately switching that Incineroar out. The Volcarona does not wake up. Fake out just to make sure the Volcarona does not move, as we have a Swords Dance now set up, trying to guarantee the next couple of turns where we're going to see the Sneasler capitalize off of so much damage that it needs. So Theotime is really trailing right now in terms of the offensive availability of the field.
Yeah, this is the risk of letting your Volcarona go to sleep here. You're very much at risk of taking a full 3 turns of sleep, and Juan's been really making the most of it. We've now got a very powerful Sneasler here that possibly could outspeed this Volcarona still. Now, the Volcarona, because it's still asleep, even with Protect attempts, could still get a successful Protect. And therefore, we could see Rillaboom kind of switch around, get Incineroar back in, provide more fake outs. But crucially, this Volcarona, having sacrificed the Terra option, is now very vulnerable to the grassy glides that this Rillaboom on Juan's end provides.
Here we go, no switch outs, fake out into the Rillaboom from Juan, on Juan's side, and Acrobatics does pick up the Volcarona. Theotime's main setup sweeper has been knocked out of this game, really setting back the offensive, I would say, availability, like mentioned before, that the Volcarona is going to be able to dispatch. This is so big because this Acrobatics Sneasler is looking so dangerous and menacing, especially when you got the Ninetales on the field, which, to be fair, still has its Focus Sash intact, but with some timed turns and switch-ins of the Incineroar, is going to be susceptible to big damage.
Yeah, big damage is the word here. So, Theotime still back against the wall a little bit, but still has the opportunity to switch things around. And that's when the Incineroar and Rillaboom combination is still really powerful here. Combined with Protects, you can still kind of keep your opponent guessing as to what target they're going to slot into and where they need to call.
As we do have the Incineroar now joining the field, and Terrestrialization being utilized from Juan's side. Terrifier, Rillaboom will make sure you're not going to be susceptible to the super effective Ice-type Blizzard from that Ninetales. Close combat into the Incineroar, picks up the KO. Juan is not messing about. There's so much momentum advantage for himself. He needs to not let his foot off the gas in any form. This allows the Blizzard to come out. I think the count now is to try to go for the freezes. There's no freeze. Woodhammer breaks the Focus Sash on the Ninetales, and Theotime now forced down to its final 2 Pokemon versus Juan's 4. This is looking so rough, and Juan has got the advantage.
Yep, definite advantage in so many ways here. Pokemon advantage, the boost advantage, and really utilizing that Sneasler, one of the unique Pokemon on his team that Theotime does not have, that so many players have dropped from their teams, and really showing off how much damage it can do.
So much, nearly picking up the KO onto the Rillaboom. The Blizzard, however, does get rid of the Sneasler, which has been such a thorn in Theotime's side. No freeze on the Rillaboom, which was needed, and the Woodhammer enough to pick up the KO onto the Alolan Ninetales. Juan has a free switch in right now. We've got a Blood Moon Ursaluna in the back that has been barely damaged, even though Juan's down to his final 2 Pokemon. You've got Fake Out, you've got Intimidate via the Incineroar, and the Blood Moon has Yawn. This is looking like a wrap-up.
It very much is, yeah, unless Theotime's Rillaboom somehow has Eruption or something, which we've been seeing a lot of this week, and wouldn't be surprised, honestly. Yeah, I think this is going to be a wrap. Juan, with that Incineroar and that trusty lefties Ursaluna that loves to yawn and snack. A little bit of a Snorlax, actually, it's kind of reminding me, to be fair. But just with that Blood Moon, is going to be able to put it in its place. It's going to take it down.
There it is.
The big old blow, the red moon from the sky, taking Rillaboom down, and what